Caleb, how's it going, man?
Hey, Dustin, it's going well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, for the folks who don't know, Caleb is the founder and CEO of Visuals by Impulse, and he's worked for companies like Nike and CapitalOne. And one day, I guess he decided that he was going to create a company in the live streaming industry, just revolved around design and animation. And VBI is just huge now. So you guys have to totally
Thank you.
check them out. And Caleb, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm super pumped to be first guest on here. I'm incredibly excited to talk about some of my experiences and really how we can help others, land into the industry and really lower the barrier to entry. Because it seems like because this is a newer field, whether it's in graphic design or gaming or esports, there's so much unknown out there. So if you and I can help kind of demystify a lot of that, I think this is a huge success.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we've got a handful of questions that I've sent your way.
Great.
And so, yeah, let's jump into this first one, which is where were you before the streaming and gaming industry, and what made you want to explore it?
Man, if you could take like the absolute opposite guess of whatever you had in mind, that's what I was doing. It was actually in cybersecurity. So prior
Whoa.
to design, my focuses were cybersecurity. Whenever you're seeing like phishing emails, malware attacks, I did that for Fortune 500 companies. I actually got my start out of Illinois. I interned with the FBI down in Springfield. And so I was doing computer forensics, and we're working on I got to work on like some really wild cases of like someone who was hiding information on their computer. You have to go do forensics on the hard drive. And then it also involved like online investigation. So I got some invaluable experiences off of that. And then after that, I moved to the East Coast with Capital One, focused on what is most commonly known as a security operations center. So, a security operations center, they are like a 24/7 team that covers like the whole world when it comes to Capital One. So, if there's any sort of threat whatsoever and it has to do with cybersecurity, that team sees it first. So, I did that for a while. My focus was primarily in financial. So then after that, I moved up to DC and worked with another financial institution, did kind of the same role there. And then kind of figured I wanted to switch gears a bit. I had always loved the West Coast, always wondered what that was like to live out there, and got an opportunity at Nike World headquarters to do cybersecurity for them. So switching gears from financial institution was really eye opening. And then this is kind of like the cue to where VBI is today. As I was in with Nike and at their headquarters, the marketing is everywhere. Everything is marketed. Like they are marketing to their employees, they're marketing obviously to their customers, to their B2B brands. You're just consuming it nonstop. And so it got me really thinking about what is a brand and how that works and how brands in general throughout the world are kind of what makes the world go round. And um, Nike was willing to protect their brand at all costs. You'll see them if someone makes a claim about them or some sort of product goes sideways, they control the message because their brand is so invaluable. And so ultimately it's what allows them to charge their markup and do some of the cool marketing activations that they get to do on a day-to-day basis. So I'd always kind of had a design background. I would come home and God, I can remember from like being 10 years old, having a copy of Photoshop and just kind of messing around with photo manipulations. I've got some work out there that's really embarrassing to see, but I did get my start through that as well. And so anyways, I would come home at night and with all this marketing and all of these brand exercises that I was exposed to, even though I was doing cybersecurity, got me thinking, it's like, well, there's a huge opportunity within streaming right now. And I would see how some of the folks would be branding themselves with essentially like paint level designs. And you just look at it and you're like, oh, we could help you out with that. Like you could be doing so much better than what you currently have. So that's when I took the initiative, kind of off the side of my desk and during the evenings, to start creating overlays, creating like Twitch alerts and things like that, because platforms like Streamlabs had really enabled me to upload those designs in a really easy to use way for other creators. Um, and I'll save you the long story, but I mean, fast forward to today, we just kept taking on so much work and we could not ever keep up with it. It didn't matter how much we raised our prices, how many more people I hired, I could not keep up with the demand. So we actually turned this into a full blown agency, creative agency that focuses on specifically working with live broadcasters and brands that are in the space. And so it got to the point where I was just having these days from like 7:30 a.m. till like 2 or 3 a.m. every single day, splitting like the day job versus VBI at night. And I finally just got to the point, it's like, I'm going crazy. I can't do this anymore. I believe I have a really strong team. I believe in what we built, and ended up making the full time leap to VBI. And here I am today.
Dude, that's insane. So like you've got your CISSP and all that stuff?
Yes, I did at some point. Obviously, I let it go now. But yeah, that's it kind of felt like at the time it felt like a waste to let all that go. So one thing about the team is they all know that we're super security focused. So in fact, we have a client success team, and Cregan from our team will reach out just about every single day. And I've got him programmed where he's like, I'm 99% sure this is phishing, but I just wanted your second opinion on it. Like, yep, you've done good. This is definitely a phish attempt at on us.
Dude, that's insane. Like it's probably crazy that the degree that you guys take security seriously is probably on a way higher level than other companies of your size in this industry by
Yeah,
like 10 or 100 fold. That's awesome though.
yeah.
Um, so you did answer the second question. So I think let's move on to the third one, which is what do you typically look for in talent, and what's your process when it comes to vetting them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think right now my answer will be different than the answer if you come back to me in 2 to 3 years from now for VBI. Um, for now, my answer would be I'm looking for self starters. I'm looking for someone that doesn't need to be micromanaged like every step of the way, because as a young, scrappy startup, we employ people who I don't necessarily prescribe. Like you start at point A and you know that you need to be at point B. I don't prescribe how to get from point A to point B. I just expect that you'll get to that second point. So if your route looks like this, so be it. As long as we're delivering on our business goals, so that's incredibly important to me. The other thing that I think is also kind of underrated at times is some of those soft skills. So just the ability to use a calendar, to use email, having professional etiquette, when to request a one-on-one to talk about issues or your performance or things like that. Those are all incredibly important to me. You can be the the best designer in the world. You can be an absolute rock star programmer, developer, but if you can't communicate and you can't convey your vision to others, and to kind of enlist comrades and who believe in your vision, then that'll only take you so far. So I think those are some of the skills that we're really looking for that would probably I'm not sure if it would surprise people or not, but like I said, I think if you would come back and ask me this question 2 years from now, I think my answer would probably change more towards the uh, proper managers, and they're able to delegate and make sure that their teammates understand managing up versus managing down. I imagine that'll be a huge focus for us in the short future.
Nice. Kind of on a tangent related to this is when it came to some of these skills, did you just kind of build them along the way, or do you think you kind of acquired them when you were working in cybersec?
I think that you definitely get thrown into the fire. Like if you didn't have those skills before, you're damn sure gonna have them after you're in the fire. So like if you're not familiar with how to use a calendar, email etiquette, someone's going to put you in your place really quickly. And I'm talking about the Fortune 500 world that I came from. So some of that kind of comes naturally, or you inherit it over time. So that's why it makes it a little bit more interesting in a 100% remote role like VBI, whereas those things aren't necessarily taught by your colleagues on social media, or if you came from a design background, college, or whatever your education is. I don't know that those things are necessarily taught. So my best suggestion would be to practice those things as if the world is always watching you. If you're on Twitter, bashing a competitor or bashing someone who's in the same space as you, like once it's on the internet, it's obviously there forever. People that you may not think are watching that, so just never do yourself a disservice in that way, and always practice as if the world is watching your every single move. And so if it's on the front newspaper tomorrow, are you proud of what you've done, and are you proud of how you upheld yourself?
Nice. That last part about if it was in the newspaper is it's kind of a interesting thing to reflect on. I think it brings a lot more to considerations about what you put out online.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's definitely what I live by. Like every decision, I'm like, okay, would I be proud of this tomorrow if the world knew about every intricate detail of what I just did? And my answer is no. Then it's like, well, it's probably not a good idea, and you should rethink this. So, pretty simple rule of thumb for me.
nice, dude. That's some great philosophy. So, next question is things that you do that might be considered atypical as a CEO, but you feel are very important to the business.
Hmm. I feel like for the viewer who's watching this and they're very much engulfed in esports and gaming or whatnot, it might come as a surprise for folks that are pretty used to business in general. It's obviously not, but I think that the most, I would say, irregular thing that most people view about my job is just being so obsessed with creating a culture within the team. Culture goes beyond like bringing your dog to work or getting off early on Fridays to go have a beer with your buddies, your work buddies. That's not culture. That's a benefit. A culture is what your team does when no one else is looking. So if you've presented a culture where it's okay to undercut the competitor, or to screw over a client or whatever the case may be, then it should come as no surprise to you that when no one's looking, guess what, your teammate is going to do that. So obviously creating those values, that really preach doing the right thing, creating an environment where we have fun, we always do right by our clients, and our partners as well. So I would say that that's a big part of my daily job. That's um, probably a little odd. I spend a lot of time on making sure that uh, I check in with a lot of people on the team. How was their weekend? What were you up to? And generally, just caring about their best interests. These people are not just work resources that come to work for you every day and get something done, and then they move on. Like these are real people who care enough about your brand, your vision, and what you have to offer, that they're willing to write it out with you. So I really, really value that.
Nice. That's definitely something to reflect on as well. And it seems like you've paid tons of attention into kind of kind of growing and assembling the culture as
Mhm.
you started to grow the company. And one thing that I want to kind of touch on for this particular question was related to the Twitter thread that you did. So
Oh
I
yeah.
think number one is that Twitter thread is pretty atypical. And the second thing is, was one of those tweets in that thread talking about how when someone downloads one of the packages that you guys have, you reach out to them.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you could get into both of those, that would be really amazing.
Yeah. I think first off, as you get further into this position, client experiences become like a drug. I don't care if like it's literally your first time streaming, or you are Josh OG. You know, you've been doing this for a long time, and you're one of the veterans. Um, it doesn't matter like what level of the journey you're at. To hear a positive experience about not only what got you into streaming, but what you had with our team, like those are just like these little nuggets that get you through the day. Those are so incredibly important to me. So, to your point, like when someone goes to our site, they download a free product, they pay for a product, they have a custom design with us. It doesn't matter. I will always send a follow up email that says, "Hey, I'm Caleb. This is an automated message, obviously, but I want to let you know I'm a real person. I care about what got you into streaming and kind of talk about some of the things that got me into this." And so, towards the end of the email, I'm like, if you want to do me a favor here, just reply back and let me know what got you into streaming. And I'm not going to lie, like, I've had so many different responses to that email. It's been absolutely incredible. Some people would respond back and they're like, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and like before she died or passed, she said that, you know, she didn't really think that gaming was a viable career for me, or that I wouldn't be able to do this full time. And so there's some people that almost take that as a challenge, and they're like, "Ma, look at me now," type thing. I hope I'm making you proud. And there's people that use different uh, factors in their life as motivation. So I get a variety of responses, but it's just really cool to see how not only where their journey starts and what got them into this, but then I love the people that then go on to say, "Listen, I got this from your site, and you have allowed me to do this," or, you know, "You have brought in this new opportunity for me because my channel looks of, you know, this sort of caliber." So those are the things that ultimately like just hit you right here, and it just gets you through your day and gets you excited about waking up tomorrow, and just hitting the ground running with your team, and delivering on more of those. So that's what I truly live for, and makes it all worth it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what the stream branding and design world was like before like 2014.
Yeah.
It was it was kind of is not so
Fair.
not where it is today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Twitter thread, what made you want to do that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, uh, I think my team probably, not that they get sick of it, but uh, in my role, I feel like it's my job to inspire others on the team and also outside of the team. So I've got a lot of colleagues and friends on Twitter who I want to, you know, sometimes you're just scrolling through a feed, and you see this one thing that inspires action or sparks action, and or it helps you get through the day or whatever the case may be. So not only is it a combination of that, but it's also me working on my personal brand as well. Yes, it's incredibly important that VBI succeeds, but I also want to be seen as something that isn't just directly tied to VBI. I want others to consider me in the same pool or thought leadership around what it takes to run a creative agency, or what it takes to run a remote team. So I've gotten a lot of feedback on some of the talks or messages I put out there. It's like, you should really compile this into a thread or some sort of post, so that way others can really consume this, and they might find something that they didn't know before, or something they never guessed about me or our team before. I think the other part of it is it's also holding myself accountable for what we do as a team. If I speak it into existence, or I tell the world, it's holding me accountable. While I have to straddle the fine line of transparency, I'll often get messages from our team that's like, dude, what are you doing? You went too far on this one. Or like, are you sure you should have said this? And obviously, I'm very thoughtful about what I put out there. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable to talk about failures, or it can be uncomfortable to talk about. I think in that Twitter thread that you're mentioning, I put in there like our first year, our revenue. Obviously, me doing this part time, but our revenue was $44 for the year. Like that's really embarrassing and humbling for me to be able to say that. And it was it made me smile, seeing people talk about that. It's like, wow, looking at VBI starting from $44 to where they are now is like, it's just incredible. And so, like I said, it holds me accountable and inspires me to do better. The next time we come out with a Twitter thread next year about what we could have done better for this year.
Nice. And so for the viewers out there, can you kind of explain exactly what that Twitter thread was, kind of the initial start of it?
Yeah, so I got the idea actually off of a LinkedIn post, and it was a gentleman who's in the software as a service business, and he said, one like on my post equals one fun fact about SaaS models or SaaS pricing. I'm like, that's a really good idea, and at first I'm like, well, I'll post this thread, I'll see what sort of reaction we get from it. If it doesn't really catch on, I'll probably just delete it and just call it a loss. Um, but it ended up like I stayed up most of that night trying to keep up with the amount of likes that were coming in. I'm like, all the sweat is dripping down. Like, oh my god, this is coming in so much faster than what I can handle. But yeah, it just ended up being a way. It was also a good test of like the Twitter algorithm as well, to see like when someone likes something, it pops up in other people's thread potentially. They're like, well, that's a really interesting subject. I've heard of VBI and I'm curious to know more in addition to what's on this thread. So it was a cool way to pilot some new engagement on my personal brand. And like I said, to hold myself accountable and get out some things about VBI or our humble beginnings that people may not have known in the past.
Nice. Dude, yeah, thanks for doing that, because that's what caused me to reach out to you, because I was like, whoa, this guy's dropping some bombs. I want to see what's up with him.
Yeah, and I
Cause
appreciate you reaching out. And
yeah,
that's kind of what I figured too. I'm like, as I was doing it and trying to keep up with all the likes that were coming in, I'm like, this is a lot of work. But what kept me going is seeing the comments on there is like, oh my God, this is so valuable, or I didn't know they went through this. And then also realizing it's like, well, you're also opening up opportunities for yourself as well outside of this thread, outside of VBI. So this is like the absolute perfect example. So I hope that it inspires other people to be transparent about maybe something they're going through, they're getting their business off the ground, or growing their stream, whatever it is. I think it's incredibly important to share some lessons learned and to put out more value into the world than what you're taking in from the community.
nice, dude. Awesome. That's yeah, it's just awesome. That's all I could really say about it. Um, so next question, the roles you're currently hiring for and any context you want to share outside of the job description on the VBI jobs page.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So we have some roles open for graphic designers, for illustration artists, for motion designers. Those are really three key positions that we essentially always keep open, because we always have this urgent need to bring in new talent to work on new projects. VBI is very much an interesting beast because we have many different points or pivots in our business. We have, if you look at our funnel, we have at the top, you have free products that bring in a majority of our clients. You filter those down to pre-made design clients where you can go on the site, purchase the design, customize it, apply it to your channel, and you're set. And then at the bottom of that funnel, we have custom design clients. And that's where the budget is definitely larger, because you're asking our team to create a unique one of one design that will never be created again. So it's not like we can relist it or salvage anything else from it. That's why the price point reflects for that portion of it. And then outside of that funnel, you also have like VIPs that we work with. So your large influencers, or even the brands within the live streaming industry that are either already established in this space or they're looking to be established in this space. So there's a lot of needs for hiring. So those are the three that we're always hiring for. So I highly encourage anyone, if you're interested, check out the careers page, visualsbyimpulse.com/careers. And then outside of that, we've got some new opportunities coming up in the future as well. Some of those revolving around our development team. We'll even spin up a marketing arm of the team as well. Our client success team is incredibly important. So we're looking for folks who are um, very privy to the live streaming industry. They're familiar with some of those common tools out there that creators are using. They can speak the lingo, and they've got some creators that they've watched in the past, and really emphasize with them, like, what are their needs, what are some of the challenges and struggles that they're faced with right now. um, it doesn't matter which role that is. We're just looking for self-starters and folks that are really familiar with the industry.
Nice, man. And I'm glad that you plugged the jobs page because I was about to ask you that. But yeah,
Always
that's
plugging, always plugging. If Courage JD taught us anything, it's always plugging.
nice. Let's see. We've got oh, one thing that I wanted to talk about is this fact that your whole team is remote. And what are some things that you've kind of learned from building and running a remote team? Because I think that's something that's going to become a lot more prevalent, and a lot of companies, especially bigger ones, aren't necessarily prepared or have the infrastructure involved, and maybe they can learn a little bit of something from you and what you guys have done.
Yeah, definitely. First, I would say take everything you thought you knew about remote teams and throw it away, because everyone learns and works a very different way than you and I might. So I had spent a lot of time of coming up with uh, employment handbooks and, like, what do we do in this sort of situation. And don't get me wrong, those things are good to have documented. But then there's certain folks that you bring on as a team where you're like, here you go, here's the lay of the land. You walk them through onboarding. Here's the tools that you'll need to use day in and day out. And then, here's everything you need to know about your job. Here's who you go to if you need help. And I found it really interesting that some people were not as responsive to that as others. And then there were some people that were, like, incredibly responsive to it. And as time went on, it's a matter of learning that person's style, for a lack of better terms. And don't get me wrong, you can also really filter for some of this in the hiring process. So you can evaluate if someone's a good fit for not only your team, but working in a remote environment. There are certain things that you can key on and ask for that'll kind of lead you to your answer. Um, but for us, it's been a lot of experimentation. Such as, we have an open office. We primarily utilize Discord for all of um, our asynchronous chat, versus synchronous. And so we'll utilize Discord. We have an open office on there. Folks are more than welcome to drop in to the voice chat, just say what's up, or chill in there on a project that they're working on. And so I thought that was really straightforward. And lesson learned, it's not. There's a lot of people that are like, listen, I feel weird about joining. I don't know if I'm being awkward, or I don't know if I'm invited, or I'm not really social in that sense. So it's a matter of learning how everyone works and really adapting a style that fits best to them. So I think back to your original question, if you understand synchronous versus asynchronous communication and how incredibly important that is in a remote work environment, then you'll be very successful in that aspect of it. Um, because it is very interesting. Like you're comfortable, you're at home. You probably have in a different light, you have more distractions, whether it's your significant other, you have pets, you have, you're at your computer, whether you want to watch a stream or whatever. So I think that an attractive thing, there's a certain deliverable or objective that's expected of you. And most employers will allow you to take the path that you're most comfortable with, as long as you just get to that end destination.
Nice, nice. Um, so this wasn't necessarily part of the list of questions, but I think it's pretty important for the folks who kind of want to get in on kind of this creative side of things of the industry. But I know that you said you started out with Photoshop, but how would you say a lot of the people on your team have built that technical skill set in terms of like learning all the different creative tools out there, whether it's After Effects or Affinity Designer or whatever? Like how have you mostly seen that people have kind of carved their way to make it into VBI?
I would say a lot of people are uh, they seek out the resources to succeed. So it sounds like such a cop out response, and we get that question a lot from aspiring designers. Like, I saw what you did for Courage JD, for example. How do I do some sort of system like that? And it's like there are literally tutorials out there. Like we can tell you, yeah, it was a JavaScript object who responds to certain events based on some sort of listener, but that doesn't really do you any good until you're able to take that concept and just go apply it or learn it from a video tutorial, or maybe you pay for some sort of design masterclass. I know that the Future, with no E on the end, is a great resource for up and coming designers or current designers to learn a bit more about how to do certain things and how to proposition yourself as a creative. And then the other half of that question is just me bragging on my team a little bit. When someone comes in and let's say they're very familiar with how to do stream design, for example, they're a rock star at overlays, they're a rock star at Twitch alerts or Mixer alerts, Facebook, whatever you're on, but they're only static alerts. And they go, listen, my world has always been static design. I don't know anything about motion. I don't know anything about what's even possible with like code, for example, in JavaScript or HTML, CSS. So we've had, going back to my point about culture, we've had to encourage an environment to where people are not afraid to speak up with their crazy idea. So if you go, listen, again, I'm the static overlay guy, this is all I've ever focused on, but what if this overlay popped out and interacted with my latest YouTube video? And from a code perspective, is that even possible? And so fostering an environment where it's okay to ask what you might feel is a stupid question, or a question that kind of makes you vulnerable, by putting it out there, the expert in coding or whatever can chime in and go, yes, it's possible because of this, or no, it's not possible because there isn't like an API endpoint for you to accomplish what you're trying to do. And then you take that as a lesson learned and either implement it or take that idea back to the drawing board and go, okay, so I pitched my idea of how I'm trying to interact with this overlay and the latest YouTube video on my channel. So it's not possible, but where's a compromise in this? And those conversations are had. So that's something I'm incredibly proud of our team, because we've had so many people that joined the team and learned those things. And we've got a number of folks who started with us having zero programming knowledge, and fast forward to today, like I literally can leave them to like a programming challenge to themselves, and they come up with an awesome solution. So that's something that we really invest in on the team, is making sure that everyone is rising together.
Dude, that's crazy because having worked in the industry, I know that there's a degree to alerts and endpoints and stuff like that, and I have a certain level of competence because I used to be a front end dev. Wasn't the career for me, but it's crazy the amount of like JavaScript and programming going on related to the alerts because yeah, it's a lot deeper than I initially thought. And this is
Hmm.
from having worked at Streamlabs for a year,
Yeah.
and it's nuts. But it's so cool that you're taking creatives and kind of turning them into creative slash engineers in a way, which is really cool.
Yeah, we want to be essentially an incubator for creatives. I don't expect someone to be with VBI forever, although I would love them to. That's a reality you have to accept. So, as a leader, it's my job to make sure their next role, no matter what it is, uh, we've done them a service to, as a stepping stone or whatever else, to prepare them with the skills they need for their next role. So again, I'm incredibly proud of that on our team, and like I said, we're looking forward to building even more creatives within the live broadcasting space.
Dude, that's awesome. And it's so cool that you talked about the future because Chris Do, I've been actually digesting a whole bunch of his content related to kind of sales and branding and having conversations with clients and stuff like that. And top notch, great
Yes, it
content.
is. Please go check out Christo in the future.
Nice. I guess the last one here is there anything else you think you'd like to share that people should care about or pay attention to with regards to business or the industry as a whole?
Yes. First thought is the industry is much smaller than you think it is. Be careful to burn any bridges because, competitor or not, everyone talks within the industry. So if you've been a difficult person to work with or you've done wrong by someone, that message absolutely gets out there. So be careful how you navigate your relationships, especially within live streaming and the industry in general. Um, I would say the other thing, thoughts I'll leave you with is things that our team works on. Some of the magic to make it all happen is so much deeper than just designs. We get a lot of questions of like, "Oh, this is so simple. How did you do this? It's so seamless." And to your point earlier, like a lot of those things are tied in with custom code and a lot of years and trials and tribulations of what works and what doesn't. So at least having some sort of knowledge or enough to get you in trouble from a code perspective is incredibly important. Like me, I can't code to save my life, but I can read it and understand what's going on, and even that is valuable in and of itself. Um, like I said, I think a lot of the industry is working together. Uh, what is that quote? It was actually George from Streamlabs. He always said it, and it's rising tides raises sailing boats. And so I think that we are all of us in the industry, like it, where we all have each other's best industry or our best interests to make sure that everyone is growing collectively, because there's a bigger pie for all of us to take a slice out of. And if we grow that pie together, then we'll all be successful. So I would say that's some incredibly important thoughts, thinking of the industry and kind of the niche that we're in.
Awesome, man. Well, Caleb, that covers all the questions we have. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing all this information and making it easier for people to understand where you're coming from, what you've done. So for maybe the illustrators, graphic designers, motion designers out there, um, that you know what Caleb's about now. So when you send in that resume or whatever, you know how to be a little bit more prepared. So Caleb,
Absolutely.
thanks so much again, and I'm really looking forward to actually having you on again in the future because I think there are many various topics that you might be interested in speaking on related to being a creative in the industry and yeah, kind of growing a business over time and all this stuff. So it would be great to have you on again sometime.
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Dustin, for the opportunity. I've enjoyed sharing my experiences. If you're ever looking to reach out, you have questions, my DMs, emails are always open. I'm happy to help however I can.
And he is very responsive, so take him at his word on that.
Thank you. That's
Caleb.
that accountability I'm talking about.
Thanks again, man.